What if your constant availability isn't always kindness, but a pattern that over time costs you your peace and shapes the way others come to rely on you? Notice what your body feels like as you consider this. Not as an idea, but as something you might feel if anything in you tightens or softens or resists. Just let that be there for a moment. There is nothing you need to fix right now, only something to begin to notice. Because for many people, the habit of always being available doesn't come from abundance. It comes from something beneath the surface, maybe even learned and practiced over time. You might recognize it in the moments where you drop everything to respond, when someone needs you, or when you feel that subtle pull to answer immediately. Even when your body is asking for space, or when you say yes, not because you want to, but because not saying yes feels heavier. And over time, something begins to happen. Not all at once, but gradually. You might feel tired in a way that rest doesn't fully reach, still replying, of course, without thinking. You begin to feel unseen, even while showing up. A subtle tension lingers beneath the surface, something hard to name. If you'd like, take a moment now to notice a breath and your body, any sensations, tension, any spaces that might feel heavy, or any images in your mind, and gently notice and breathe into them for one slow cycle, just one breath to acknowledge what is here. Because this can be confusing. Because on the surface, it looks like care or maybe generosity. It can look like being someone others can rely on, but underneath, there is often a different dynamic unfolding. One that isn't always conscious and usually difficult to place your finger on. You might notice that some relationships begin to revolve around what you provide, rather than who you are. You become the one people go to when things fall apart, the one who listens, holds, and then absorbs for others. And slowly, without meaning to, you begin carrying more than your share. Not because anyone explicitly asked you to, but because the role formed over time. And once a role is established, it tends to continue. This is where things begin to shift internally, because something in you starts to sense the imbalance. Even if you can't fully articulate it yet, there can be a faint feeling of being taken for granted, or a subtle question that arises, almost in passing. Would I still be valued if I stopped showing up like this? It's not always a comfortable question. So often it gets pushed aside, replaced with more giving, a tendency to remain open, even when you're tired, and more effort to maintain connection. But the question doesn't disappear. It waits. And this is where we can begin to look a little deeper. Not in a way that blames, but in a way that brings understanding. Because from a psychological perspective, this pattern isn't random. It has structure. It has roots. Carl Jung spoke about something called the persona, the version of ourselves we develop to meet expectations and maintain connection. Over time, this persona can become very refined, very convincing. So convincing that we begin to believe it is who we are. Reliable, supportive, always present. And while there is nothing inherently wrong with these qualities, they can become limiting when they are no longer chosen, when they become automatic, when they become the only way we know how to relate. Because behind the persona, there are often other parts of us that don't get expressed. The part that needs space, or the part that wants to say no, or maybe the part that feels overwhelmed. Take a brief pause here if you'd like to, and silently check in with these parts. Notice their presence without trying to change anything. Maybe a sensation, an image, a tone of voice. Just allow the part to exist alongside your awareness. Give it space. Jung would describe these disowned aspects as shadow parts. Not because they are bad, but because they remain outside of our awareness. And when something stays in the shadow, it doesn't disappear. It influences us indirectly. It can show up as a kind of tiredness that doesn't fully resolve, or as a quiet tension that lingers. Something you might notice in certain moments without fully naming, or simply as the sense that something isn't sitting quite right, even if everything appears to be in place. So what begins as kindness can slowly turn into something else. A pattern of self-abandonment that feels almost invisible because it is reinforced, appreciated, and it is often praised. And yet, it comes at a cost that is paid in energy, in attention, and in a gradual distancing from your own inner signals, from what you actually feel and from what you actually need. If this resonates at all, you might pause here for a moment, not to analyze or judge, but simply to notice with curiosity what it feels like to consider the possibility that your availability has not always been a choice, that sometimes it has been a reflex, and that this reflex may have been shaped slowly over time, shaped by what you've lived through, influenced by what was reinforced, what came to be expected, and held in place by the natural pull of connection, by the desire to be received, by the fear of being alone. There is nothing wrong with that, but when connection comes at the expense of your own stability, sometimes things begin to break. And often, the first step isn't changing the behavior, it's seeing it clearly, without judgment, without rushing to fix it, just allowing the pattern to become visible. Because once something is seen, it begins to shift. Not forcefully, but naturally. And this is where a different kind of relationship with your availability can begin, not one driven by pressure or expectation, but one shaped by awareness. If you find yourself wanting to explore this more deeply, to understand these patterns in your own life, or to begin relating to your energy in a more grounded way, there are a few resources below that can support you. You don't have to take on everything at once. Just start where something resonates, and let that be enough for now. As this becomes a little more visible, something else often begins to emerge. Not just the pattern itself, but the sense of curiosity underneath it. Why this dynamic exists in the first place, and why it tends to repeat. Because it isn't only about you, it also shows up in how others relate to, what they project, or what they unconsciously place onto you. And seeing that clearly can change everything about how you experience your relationships. If you'd like to continue exploring shadow work, find the foundations of shadow work next in the series. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.